Have you ever noticed how easily we transition from describing the world as it is to stating how it ought to be? It seems natural to say, that child is suffering, so we should help them. But what if that leap from facts to values isn't as straightforward as it seems? No, the is-ought problem does not necessarily undermine ethical theory, but it presents a profound challenge that ethical theories must directly address. It highlights a fundamental distinction between descriptive statements about the world and prescriptive statements about moral obligations. This challenge, first prominently observed by the Scottish philosopher David Hume, points out that one cannot logically derive an ought statement from purely is statements. Facts describe what exists, while values prescribe what should exist. For example, simply knowing that people often act in their self-interest, and is statement, does not logically compel us to conclude that people ought to act solely in their self-interest. To claim an ought from an is often referred to as committing the naturalistic fallacy, where one mistakenly equates what is natural or factual with what is morally right or good. Philosophers have responded to this deep insight in various ways, often by acknowledging that ethical theories must explicitly introduce some fundamental value premises. This means that instead of trying to derive values from facts, a sound ethical argument will begin with foundational moral principles or intuitions. For instance, a utilitarian theory might start with the premise that we ought to maximize overall happiness, while a deontological theory might posit that we ought to act according to universalizable moral duties. Understanding the is-ought problem also helps us differentiate between what is sometimes called thick and thin ethical concepts. Thick concepts, like cruelty or generosity, inherently blend both factual description and moral evaluation, making the fact-value distinction less stark. This problem also relates to the open question argument, which suggests that no naturalistic property can fully define moral terms, because one can always meaningfully ask if that property is truly good. Its influence extends across metaethics, shaping debates on moral realism versus anti-realism and the very nature of moral justification. By grappling with the is-ought problem, ethical theory is not undermined but rather strengthened. It forces us to be more explicit and rigorous about the foundations of our moral reasoning. This insight encourages clearer thinking about how we construct our ethical systems and articulate the premises upon which our moral conclusions genuinely rest, ensuring our ethical arguments are robust and well-founded.